שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן. יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה יאללה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה יאללה לה, יאללה לה 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 לה, יאללה לה 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 לה. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Chag Sameach. This week we have celebrated the 75th anniversary of the State of Israel. So we wish you a very happy Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. I'm Rabbi Jonathan Blake. I'm joined on the bima by Cantor Amanda Kleinman, Rabbi Leah Citrin, our temple president Warren Haber, and at the pit by Pete Malinverni and Idan Santhaus and Jerome Morris on percussion. We're so happy to welcome our community tonight. We're especially happy to welcome our many families who participate in WRT's JLL, that's our Jewish Learning Lab, who are here for a special family Shabbat and Yom Ha'atzmaut experience, so welcome to you. Tonight's theme will be what Israel means to me today. And we're going to hear a couple of voices and a lot of music that's inflecting our service that lifts up our connection to Israel, the land, the people, the history. So what Israel means to me today. Many people, when they think of Israel, think about the past, a biblical homeland. Jewish people consider Israel our roots, the place from which we originally come. We have had a connection to this part of the world for thousands of years. It's funny when I go to a city like New York or Philadelphia with a tour and somebody says, and this building is really old. It comes from the colonial period. And they talk about the 18th century. When I go to Israel, the 18th century means BCE, 1800 years before the year zero. That's old. For some people, Israel is all about the present moment. Those of us who have friends or family, those of us who read the news coming out of Israel, listen to podcasts, who can't get enough of the day-to-day excitement that is modern-day Israel. In Israel that is both the incredible high-tech of Tel Aviv and the vibrant multicultural life of Jerusalem, and everywhere in between, the Israel that is brash and complex and exciting and often very challenging. But what Israel means to me today is the future. Because there is no Jewish future without Israel. Recently, and by recently I mean only within the last couple of years, the number of Jewish people living in Israel exceeded any other Jewish population center anywhere else in the world, including North America. So there are presently, out of the world's 15.3 million Jews, more than half living in Medinat Yisrael, living in the state of Israel. There can be and there will be no Jewish future without Israel. It's not just a population thing. It's about art, it's about culture, it's about science and technology. It's about the future of the global community runs through Israel. And so that's a little bit about what Israel means to me today. Will you please take a moment? You don't need to share anything about Israel, but maybe you could wish somebody you haven't met tonight Shabbat Shalom. We actually have a lot of people in the congregation who have a special connection to Israel. So just meet somebody, get a name, wish that person Shabbat Shalom. At this time, we would love to call forward Sam and Jeff Reamer and their kids Maddie and Blake to help kindle the lights for Shabbat. Sam Reamer sits on our temple's board of trustees and was one of the lead planners for tonight's family event and this special service of Shabbat and celebration. Hi. Amen. Thank you for bringing light and warmth on this cool and dreary spring evening. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much.
So Rabbi Blake told us that the theme for this evening's service is What Israel Means to Me Today, and I am the cantor, of course, and so what Israel means to me today is all of the beautiful music being composed by Reform and other progressive communities in Israel that is really changing the landscape of prayer throughout the Jewish world. And so our melodies this evening will highlight some of the beautiful music that is being written in Israel for prayer. We'll start on page 130 with the 95th Psalm, the psalm that gives us its instructions in its first two words, Lechu Neranana, let us all sing together, and I hope you'll join with me in singing. Lechu Neranana Adonai, Nariya letzor yishenu.
לקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו. לקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו.
Page 138. We're going to sing Lecha Dodi, which is a song that welcomes Shabbat, which is imagined to be like a bride, and the Jewish people like the groom. And together, we're creating a spiritual wedding called Shabbat. We're going to sing the first, the second, the fifth, and the last verses. Watch my hand and you'll know what number verse we're singing. 1, 2, 5, 9. For the last verse, I'll invite us all to rise. We will turn and face the entrance. Hi, Mike. Mike is going to be the Shabbat bride tonight. So everybody's going to turn and face Mike, and the Shabbat bride will be welcomed to our sanctuary. Page 138.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, hishianu elam meyuchad. Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, l'shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shabbat, Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki מקור הברכה. בינו ראש מקדם משוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, ki ba'orek u'mi'ori. Uri, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני ים סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Remain standing as we turn.
We remain standing as we turn to page 146 for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed. Page 148. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons. Tonight we recite this blessing for changing times and changing seasons, Israeli style, but with a melody that I think we all know. כשאני רואה בחלוני עץ שמוריד לך וגם לי, אני שר לעצמי איזה אחלה עולם, איזה אחלה עולם. השמיים כחולים, ענן הוא לבן, והבוקר בהיר ובלילה אשן, ואחלום לעצמי איזה אחלה, איזה אחלה עולם. וכל צבעי הקשת יפים וחדשים, פרוסים אחרי הגשם על פני האנשים, והיום כה יפה וקל לי כל כך לומר שאני אוהב אותך. All together. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על
מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
In this moment to share what Israel means to him, I invite forward our Shinshin, our Israeli emissary who is spending the year here in America in between high school and the army, Roy Newman, to come forward and share his words. Our fifth graders will recognize him. He spends every week with them at the JLL, and some of our teens will recognize him from Wednesday nights.
Shabbat Shalom, Chag Atzmaut Sameach. Thank you, Rabbi Blake, for the honor of speaking to this incredible congregation tonight. I am so lucky and proud to be a part of the WRT and JLL community this year. Thank you, Rabbi Citrin, and the entire JLL team for making me feel like this is my home. In about a month from now, I'll be driving down to Brooklyn with Rabbi Blake to have dinner at a restaurant he claims has the best hummus outside the Middle East. I am very excited about it. Not only am I excited to have dinner with Rabbi Blake, I am, but I'm also very excited about the hummus. Us Israelis love hummus. Now, I can almost guarantee you that without the state of Israel, someone like me, who is 100% European, according to the ancestry DNA test I took, would like hummus, which originates in Egypt, let alone know what it is. The state of Israel was founded by Jewish immigrants from all over the world. Jews from Germany, Hungary, Romania, and Poland, like my family, and Jews from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, the Americas. These immigrants brought with them their local cuisines, creating what we now call Israeli food, which includes the Middle Eastern hummus and the European schnitzel and gefilte fish. Now, I am a proud member of the gefilte fish lovers minority in Israel. The great food in Israel is just one of many things I love about my country. Throughout this year here at WRT, I talked with my fifth graders every Sunday about those other things. They include unbelievable achievements in science and technology, like inventing a device that can detect odors of diseases like cancer and Parkinson's, or the Iron Dome that protects Israeli civilians from rockets and missile fire. They include Israel's culture, the way holidays are celebrated, and so much more. If you want to hear more, find me during dinner. Last Sunday, I told my fifth graders that we're going to take a step back today. All year, we talked about all those things that make Israel great, but that today we will talk about the basic foundations of the Jewish state, the values the country was founded upon, the one it is, or still should, represent. I know that you're used to hear quotes from the Torah from this bima, but today I'll be quoting a different document, still very important, Israel's Declaration of Independence. 75 years ago this week, the Jewish leadership in the land of Israel gathered in a small room in Tel Aviv and declared the establishment of the State of Israel. On this most special occasion, Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, read to the crowds in and out of the room and across the world Israel's Declaration of Independence, the document that sets the image and soul of the newborn country. The declaration starts with the history of the Jewish people and their connection and bond to the land of Israel. It says, the land of Israel was the birthplace of the Jewish people. Here their spiritual, religious, and political identity was shaped. Here they first attained to statehood, created cultural values of national and universal significance, and gave to the world the eternal book of books. The history goes on to talk about the exile of the Jewish people from their homeland and their mission of 2 millennia to return there. Then, independence is declared. Accordingly, we, by virtue of our natural and historic right, hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in Eretz Israel to be known as the State of Israel. So here we get the first value or characteristic of the new nation, Judaism. Now, I can guarantee to you The secular and socialist Ben-Gurion and his allies did not mean a Jewish state in the sense of a state ruled by the laws of the Torah. Rather, they were building a homeland for the Jewish people that will be based on the values of Judaism, like tzedek, justice, or tikkun olam, repairing the world. But you don't have to take my word for it, because the declaration goes on. It says, Israel will be based on freedom, justice, and peace as envisioned by the prophets of Israel. It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex. It will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture. In the eyes of the founding fathers, Judaism and democracy went together. And for 75 years, Israel has maintained this balance and connection, a Jewish and democratic state, a Jewish democracy. A country based on the values of Judaism, but a thriving democracy that ensures full and equal rights to all its citizens. A country that welcomes limitless Jewish immigration, but guarantees the freedom of religion to all its citizens. This is the Israel I believe in. This is what Israel means to me. The prayer for the state of Israel that you can find in your prayer books on page 377 starts with the words, Avinu shebashamayim tzur Yisrael vegoalo, barech et medinat Yisrael, reshit tzmichat geulatenu. Now, the English version on the same page does not offer an exact translation to these words, so I want to offer it to you. It says, Our Father in heaven, Rock and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, the first manifestation of the approach of our redemption. Pretty big words. Recently, I've been thinking, is it really? Is Israel truly that, the first manifestation of the approach of our redemption? My answer, yes, it is. Israel has its faults and problems, and they probably will never entirely go away. I hope that one day they will, at least some of them. But Israel is the greatest achievement of the Jewish people in the last 2,000 years. It is a project that is still not completed of building a national, strong, and democratic homeland for the Jewish people. A country that will protect every single Jewish person around the world, will always guarantee the survival of the Jewish state. But it is also a country that ensures the rights of all its citizens, regardless of their faith. Recently, many Israelis believe that these values came under attack. Hundreds of thousands of Israelis have been protesting for the last 17 weeks, waving Israeli flags and singing our national anthem, Hatikva, the hope. These patriots were making clear to the Israeli government that these values and principles cannot and will not be compromised. Currently, it looks like they're succeeding. I believe that Israel is indeed Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu, the first manifestation of the approach of our redemption. We simply need, like the Constitution of this country says, make it more perfect. We need to strengthen its Jewish identity to include all Jews and protect its democratic values and principles. We should strive for peace with our foes and neighbors and continue to lead the world, right after Silicon Valley, in technology and innovation. We must ensure that the success of this project, one that was never attempted before, a Jewish democracy, succeeds. And now, because my boss is here, if you want to join us in celebrating this project, the State of Israel, join us for an amazing Israel at 75 celebration, co-sponsored by WRT, with activities, food, dancing, a concert, and so much more. It's happening May 21st, 2 to 5 p.m. at Temple Israel at New Rochelle. May the next 75 years be even more successful than the last ones. Like my first graders say, Yom Holedet Sameach Israel. Happy birthday, Israel. Thank you.
The existence of the State of Israel and our ability to celebrate it is one example of freedom. Another example of freedom can be found on page 158 in the words of Mi Chamocha, words that were sung by the Israelites as they crossed the Red Sea, celebrating freedom from Egypt.
בקודש נורא תהילותו ספלת נורא תהילותו ספלת מהותך ראו בניך וכי הים לפני משה ומרים זהו
Adonai et Yaakov, ugealo miad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
Before we turn to the words of Hashkivenu on page 160, I will say that what Israel means to me is connected and embedded heavily in my connection to the sport of softball and baseball. If you're interested to know more, I will share with you at dinner, so come find me. Page 160.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, U'mevim לגאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
We take a moment now to continue our prayer silently, either using the words of your book or the words of your heart. I invite you to remain standing until you have completed your prayers, and then you may be seated.
yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Salam, aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, shalom. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam. Od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu, od yavo shalom aleinu ve'al kulam.
We are delighted to have welcomed back to our Westchester Reformed Temple community Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin, who got his start here at WRT in 1973. He'll tell you how he came connected to our community 50 years ago and has returned again and again, always as a friend, a teacher, a mentor, and an important voice for our community to hear. He is one of American Judaism's most prolific and most quoted rabbis. His blog, which is called Martini Judaism, for those who want to be shaken and stirred, published by the Religion News Service, won a 2022 Wilbur Award from the Religion Communicators Council for Best Religion Blog of the Year, as well as 2 previous awards. He is a much-published author and essayist, having appeared in the Washington Post, Commentary Magazine, the Wall Street Journal, the Huffington Post, Tablet Magazine, Mosaic, The Forward, and JTA, the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. He has discussed the American political scene on the BBC and CNN, including CNN just this week. He has contributed articles to countless scholarly journals, and his 10 books discuss subjects such as B'nai Mitzvah, Israel, masculinity, and Jewish culture, as well as 3 Torah commentaries, of which I'm a contributing essayist in his book Text Messages, a Torah Commentary for Teens. He also has a forthcoming book on the future of liberal, that is, non-Orthodox Judaism, scheduled to be published this coming fall. He serves as the rabbi of Temple Israel in West Palm Beach, Florida, and hobbies include music, movies, bicycling, and consuming vast quantities of coffee. I've enjoyed spending the week with Rabbi Jeff Salkin. This engagement tonight is also a prelude to his appearance tomorrow, teaching us Torah study at 9 a.m. and a community-wide conversation at 11 called How Jews Got Woke. And that is for the entire congregation. It will be part of our Sharing Shabbat adult study, our Torah study, who want to continue learning with Rabbi Salkin tomorrow morning, and the entire community is welcome to come to hear Rabbi Salkin tomorrow at 11. I've asked my friend to contribute a few remarks to tonight's celebratory service of Yom HaAtzmaut by sharing what Israel means to me today. Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin.
Shabbat Shalom. I'll answer the question for you that's going to haunt you unless and until I deal with it. The answer to the first question is 5. The answer to the second question is no. No, I did not play basketball. In fact, when the basketball coach saw me when I was in high school, he said to me, "You should be playing basketball with your long legs." I said, "No, I want to become a rabbi. I want to write books and I want to teach people." He said, "Cut it out, Salkin, with your legs in basketball." I said, "Have it your way." So I played basketball. He called me into his office and he said, "Salkin, I'm going to talk about a career as a Reform rabbi." More on that later. Yes, it was exactly 50 years ago, 1973, right before the Yom Kippur War, that I first entered this building. No, I was not a child in the Early Childhood Center. Your math is wrong. I was, however, a young religious school teacher. I was attending just at the time, and I was engaged to teach our 8th graders, some of whom are grandparents now. I had the great blessing of knowing Rabbi Jack Stern of blessed memory, of speaking here when Rabbi Rick Jacobs was the rabbi, and enjoying and almost treating as oxygen my time with Rabbi. I can say without fear of contradiction, this is the only America where I have learned from 3 generations of rabbis and felt close to them. And being present at this service with your wonderful, wonderful cantor and a new microphone, which is itself a metaphor for Zionism, tikkun ha-mikrofon, it's really been a blessing. This really happened. A number of years ago, my young cousin was on a USY, United Synagogue youth trip to Israel, and they took the kids up to Rosh HaNikra, to the grottos, and she was leaning over to take a photograph, and she dropped her camera into the water. She called her mother absolutely heartbroken, and her mother said, "Okay, these things happen, the camera's gone, and all your photographs." A month later, she gets a package. It's her camera. Here's the story. There were some Israeli soldiers on maneuvers in the Mediterranean. There were some skin divers. An Israeli soldier found her camera at the bottom of the Mediterranean, pulls out the card, looks at the photographs, sees a bunch of kids wearing USY Minneapolis Israel Mission t-shirts, calls USY. They get in touch with USY in Minneapolis. They ask, is there anyone who lost a camera in Israel? That's how my young cousin got her camera back. This sort of stuff happens a lot. Just today, I got an email from a stranger who found a bag of mine on Southwest Airlines and said, "It's in the mail, I'm returning it to you." The scary thing is I didn't even realize I had lost it. But I want to say that this story has an element of Rak b'Yisrael, only in Israel. Because, my friends, this is one of the most beautiful, delicate mitzvot that we have in our entire collection of 613, returning lost objects. In the ancient temple in Jerusalem, there was a chamber where if people found something, they would bring it, and if people lost something, they would go and they would find it. There's a wonderful midrash that says that every tribe of ancient Israel had a job to do, and the tribe of Dan was the tribe that had to walk last in the trek through the wilderness because it was their gig to find all the stuff that the other tribes had lost and bring it back to them. And so now I'm going to share with you my own reflection on what it was that the Jewish people had lost and what we found as a result of Israel. Help me with this. What had we lost in our history, and what did Israel help us find? Anybody? Help me write the sermon. What had we lost, and what did Israel help us find? What's that? Home? Yes. Number one, Israel helped us find home. We had lost our home, and we got our home back. Now, this is very interesting. You see, for centuries, when we Jews reclaimed our sense of what it meant to live with the holiness of place, the holiest places we had were the home. By the way, what's the holiest place in the Jewish home? This is not a joke. This is true. What's the holiest place in the Jewish home? And the holiest place in the kitchen? The table. The table. Because the table is like a substitute for the ancient altar in Jerusalem. And then we have, of course, had the holiness of the synagogue. But what we had lost was the holiness of a home that was a land. A number of years ago, I was in Jerusalem. It was Erev Shabbat. I was on my way to a friend's house for dinner. And there was one of those gorgeous Jerusalem. You know what it paints the entire city purple. Then you understand the song, Yerushalayim Shel Zahav, Jerusalem of gold. This is God's paintbrush. And I'm standing on a hill, and there's an old woman standing next to me, and we're looking at the sunset. And she turns to me and she says, Rov ha'anashim lo yiru et ze. The overwhelming majority of people will never see this. Number one, the overwhelming majority of people will never see a sunset in Jerusalem. Sadly, if you have, consider yourself blessed. And number two, even when they're in Jerusalem, the overwhelming majority of people never see it. There is so much for us to worry about in terms of Israel, but I have to say, this week for her birthday party, I'm not bringing that stuff up. Like when my Aunt Izzy turned 75, the cousins don't sit around and talk about how she could be a nuisance. It's about praise. It's about the miracle. I have to tell you this story. This is true. All my stories are true. A number of years ago, I knew of a woman. She was Jewish, and this woman was a major anti-Israel activist. She had Israel phobia. She believed there should not be a Jewish state, and she worked to undermine Israel, writing articles, letters. How's your Yiddish? She was farbissina. She was like really bitter. And then one day she developed a stomach ache. She went to the doctor, and the doctor said, The doctor put a belt around her stomach and gave her a pill to swallow and said, just swallow this pill, come back in 2 weeks. She did. She came back. The doctor said, I got some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that you seem to have a tumor in your stomach. And the good news is that it's so small that we can operate and deal with it, and it'll go away. And this woman bursts into tears. And she said, where was this technology developed? And he said, oh, in Israel. The year afterwards, she went to AIPAC. Yes, we got our home back. There's a second thing that we got back. We got back our dignity. We got back our dignity. We had lost it. We didn't have power anymore. And Israel means that we now get to stand up. Now, I will say this. I'll be the first to admit, I'm breaking my rule. Power and the way we use power has all sorts of ethical issues. But let me tell you this. I'd rather have too much power and struggle with those issues than too little power and have to say Kaddish a lot more. When I was in 7th grade, it was 1967, and it was during the Six-Day War. Those of you who were alive back then, you know who you are. You remember the miracle of Israel's victory, which was, by the way, just another version of Israel's miracle victory 75 years ago this week. I know it's hard for you to imagine this. I was a scrawny kid. I was almost as tall as I am now, but I was a lot skinnier than I am now. I had long hair. I was a poet and a guitar player. I was not an athlete. We've already established that. And I know it's hard for you to imagine this, but just believe me when I say this. I was the victim of bullies. I got bullied a lot. There was a wonderful ritual that took place in the cafeteria of my middle school. We called it junior high back then, where these would come to me, and it was beautiful. There was a whole thing that went along with this, and they took the tray out of my hand, and I would have to pick. The biggest bully during the Six-Day War comes over to me. This guy was huge. This guy was like a refrigerator. By the way, we're best friends on Facebook now. Because let's be honest, I'm doing much better than he is. He comes over to me. I'm standing there with my tray, and I'm ready to basically say shalom to my lunch, or watch as it was all over my shoes. He comes over to me, and he sticks his face in front of mine, and he said, "Hey, you know what? You Jews really do know how to fight, don't you?" And he walked away. That's what it meant for this 13-year-old kid. Israel stood up for our dignity. There was something else that we had lost over the centuries. We had lost a spoken language. Hebrew was basically for study and for prayer, but no one spoke Hebrew anymore. And then Eliezer ben Yehuda revived the Hebrew language. I have to tell you this. Please do not misunderstand or underestimate the power of this miracle. Listen to me. Kids, stay in school. Kids, listen to me. If you're Hebrew, and if you're learning how to speak the Hebrew, no one did that 100 years ago. You have bragging rights now over generations of Jewish kids. When I go to Israel, when I go to Jerusalem, and I go to synagogue, I deliberately sit in a place near the window so that I have a stereophonic experience of the Hebrew language. With one ear, I'm hearing the prayers chanted in a language that the prophet Isaiah would understand, and with the other ear, I'm listening to the kids outside in the playground who are yelling at each other and taunting each other in modern Hebrew. And that is why being in this synagogue this evening and hearing the squeals of children is sacred to me. Doesn't matter that they're not doing it in Hebrew. But knowing this synagogue, someday they will. And there's one last thing that Israel brought us back to. And that is the idea that we, as a people, would be able to have our sanctity back and to feel a sense of connection to Jewish time in a Jewish place. I used to live in Rehavia in Jerusalem, a fancy neighborhood, right next to the worst ever intersection in the city. Cars would whip around there, and there were always accidents. One year on Yom Kippur, a Russian Jewish kid went into the middle of the street, and he lay down in the middle of the street with his arms open wide. Why? Because he could. Because there were no cars. And he was saying, as it were, I'm home. There are no cars in Yom Kippur. I'm free. That's what Israel means to me today. And I am well aware of the fact that Israel has many critics. I'm well aware of the fact that Israel has many blemishes. And tonight, lo ichpat li. I don't care. This is about praise. Let me end with the following story. Mrs. Goldberg. Mrs. Goldberg's son, Jonathan, decides that he wants to enroll in an officer training program. Mrs. Goldberg is in the Bronx, of course, and Jonathan goes down to Fort Benning in Georgia to enroll in this officer training program. And he calls his mother and says, "Hey, Mom, I'm graduating. I want you and all your friends to come down to Fort Benning for my graduation ceremonies." And so she gets all of her friends, and they get on a bus. Takes them 2 days, but they get down to Fort Benning in Georgia. And they're sitting there, and they're watching the ceremony. And they see Jonathan's squad. They're all dressed in white. They're gorgeous. You got to know this, right? She sees Jonathan's squad coming out and going to the reviewing stand where all the generals are. And they're marching over there, and they salute the generals. And Jonathan is walking this way. Mrs. Goldberg turns to her friends and she says, "This is so wonderful. I'm so proud of him. He's the only one who's doing it right." Friends, I have to tell you something. Sometimes, when you're a lover and supporter of Israel, you do get the feeling that we're marching in a different direction. But I have to tell you, when people tell you that the Jews are not a people, just a religion, we march in a different direction. When people tell you that Israel has no right to a state, that Jews have no right to sovereignty, we march in a different direction. When people tell you that the only country in the world whose imperfections and blemishes cancel it, we march in a different direction. No one ever said that England should not exist because of the years of oppression of Northern Ireland. You ever notice that? No one ever said that South Africa should not exist because of the years of apartheid. You ever notice that? No one ever said that Red China shouldn't exist because of the oppression of Tibet. Ever notice that? And no one ever said that the United States should not have existed because of that adventure that I'm looking around, some of us lived through, that little adventure called Vietnam. The only country whose flaws condemn it is the Jewish state. And I got a problem with that. I hope you're always going to join me in marching in that different direction. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you to our friend, my friend, Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin. Rabbi Salkin's appearance at WRT is sponsored in part by the Vivian Solds Fund for Jewish Education at Westchester Reformed Temple, and will continue through his Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and How Jews Got Woke at 11. So we can't wait to keep learning with our very special guest, who is always welcome here and back here at WRT. We are going to rise at this time, not to march in a different direction, but to face the ark for Aleinu. Please rise.
Aleinu
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
For one full day, Before we observed and celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel's 75th anniversary of independence, which was from Tuesday night to Wednesday at sundown, we observed Yom HaZikaron, our Memorial Day for Israel's fallen soldiers and victims of terror, which was observed from Monday at sundown until Tuesday night. All over the Jewish world, we stood in silence as we commemorated the tens of thousands of people who have given their lives so that there could be a Yom HaAtzmaut, a day of an Israel reborn, a day of a Jewish home reborn. And so tonight, we also perform this act of zikaron, of remembrance, for Israel's fallen, for our own loved ones whose Yortzeitin, the anniversary of whose passing, is commemorated on this Shabbat, and especially for those who come to this sanctuary tonight with hearts heavy with grief, who are carrying the memory of a loved one whom you have recently laid to rest. We'd like to acknowledge all of our mourners in the following order by asking you to rise. Will those who are within a first 7 days of remembrance please rise? If you are within 30 days of having laid to rest your loved one, would you please rise? Those who are within a first year of mourning, please rise. And if tonight marks a yahrzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's death, would you please rise? As a gesture of sympathy with our mourners and also in remembrance of Israel's fallen, would you all please rise as one congregation? Tonight, our congregation lovingly acknowledges those who have died most recently. I learned just moments before our Shabbat service of the passing of the great Rabbi Harold Kushner, an incredible teacher and friend of the Jewish people, author of so many books of wisdom, perhaps most noted among them, When Bad Things Happen to Good People. We will continue to say his name with honor and deep admiration. We also remember tonight Yelena Averbuk, loved one of Arlene and Martin Epstein, Daniel Ballin, Arlene Rosenblatt, mother of Mark Rosenblatt, Ruth Schuster, mother of Dave Schuster, Burton Chandler, father of Vicky Silver, Rhoda Bauman, mother-in-law of Amy Bauman, mother of Jennifer Crossan, grandmother of William and Rachel Bauman, and sister of Sheila Katz, Lori Horowitz, wife of Mark Horowitz, mother of Julie Bloom and Jordan Horowitz, and sister of Barbara Cedar, Shirley Navon Varon, mother of Bradley Bloom, Arnold Kessler, father of Susan Kessler Ross, Shelley Rubenstein, wife of Lawrence Rubenstein and mother of Jackie Bellick, Richard Lasky, uncle of Erica German, Murray Ginsburg, husband of Ruth Ginsburg and father of Daniel Ginsburg and Iris Howe, and Wallace Musoff, husband of Sandy Musoff and father of Jay, Scott, and Adam Musoff, all of whom have been taken in the last 4 weeks. Our congregation also remembers tonight on their Yortzeitin Faye Berman, Morris Beller, Barbara Belsey, Michael Bergman, Larry Buxbaum, Betty Citron, Brian Cohen, Charles Cohen, Anita Diamond, Philip Dworetsky, Ben Edelman, Jules Feldmesser, Harry Fields, Martin Fife, Bennett Lowenstein-Fishman, David Foreman, John Frankel, Barry Fryman, Maurice Friedman, Mary Kaplan-Geller, Yetta Goldberg, Charles Herman, Herman Golden, Dorothy Goldstein, Michael Greenberg, Shirley Greenfield, Cecily Gutter, Jesse Hennig, Suki Jacobs, Carl Nispel, Pearl Koch, Martha Lawner, Joan Messinger, Marvin Meth, Milton Munitz, Ethel Michelson, Fred Nelson, Ruth Reynolds, Rita Roseman, Harry Shapiro, Ruth Shapiro, Shepard Shapiro, Jack Young, Irving Simon, Kenneth Sipser, Miriam Spitalny, Stuart Sunnis, Bernard Chorney, Isaac Weissman, and Melvin Wiesenthal. If there are names to add for our commemoration, or if I've inadvertently mispronounced the loved one's name, kindly speak your names at this time. Tehi zichronam baruch, may the memories of those whom we carry in our hearts abide for blessing. The words of the Mourner's Kaddish are found on page 598. We offer them together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yalma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'gala v'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam alamei maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom bimromav v'yasei shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Osei shalom bimromav v'yasei shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
We're good. I'd like to thank our greeter tonight, Michael Rahimi. Thank you, Michael. Also like to wish a hearty mazel tov to Allison Rosenberg and the Rosenberg family, as well as Spencer Perla and the whole Perla family, who are both celebrating tomorrow here. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., as Rabbi Blake mentioned, we have Torah study with Rabbi Jeffrey Salkin in person and via Zoom. Sharon Shabbat meets at 9 a.m. in the CJL. On Sunday at 2:30, there's a panel preceding a concert for Isaac Sonnet Asor, followed by wine and cheese. So please join us. Packing for College seminar on Wednesday at 7. The Chai Society Shabbat next week on Friday. And I'd like to mention Rabbi Blake's conversation with Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Jodi Kantor on Thursday, May 11th at 7:30. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Shabbat Shalom.
Our concluding song is Hatikva, the hope, the one thing that the Jewish people never lost. Even in 2,000 years of statelessness, we never lost the hope that Israel reborn represents. Page 678, will the congregation please rise? Kol od balevav penima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfate mizrach kadima, ayin letzion Sophia. We'll hear a few announcements about how our service will conclude and what will follow, and then we'll break bread here together on the bima.
So for all of my friends who are in the JLL or of JLL age up to B'nai Mitzvah, in just one moment I'm going to invite you all up on the bima to help us with Kiddush and Motzi. But after that, assuming that you are all in fact hungry for the wonderful dinner that we have promised you, you will go right through, so I guess you can bring your parents too, through the center doors right into the social hall for our dinner. For those of you who are not part of our JLL family Shabbat, there is your wonderful regular oneg that is out through the main doors into the lobby. So once we conclude, that's where we're headed. Before we conclude, I'd like all of our JLL age students all the way up to B'nai Mitzvah age. So if you have not yet been called to Torah as
First
B'nai
one on the
Mitzvah,
bima gets the
come on
challah
up.
first.
Don't be bashful. Thank you,
Right.
Josh Burns.
There you go.
Come on up. It is not a competition.
Thanks,
we
guys.
are all going to celebrate together.
Come on
and
up,
we,
come on up.
Come on up. Look at all of this.
Hey.
All right. I did not.
All right.
But I am going to give him a chance to not repeat it.
Okay.
All right. We raise our cup filled with the sweetness of Shabbat. Yeah, you can all hold your pretend cups too. I'm all about that. Cantor, will you help us?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
L'chaim.
Chaim. All right. Let's see. Whose birthday is closest to today?
Israel's.
Israel's. Good. All right. Wait.
May 10th.
May 10th, May 6th.
Okay, May
All right.
10th and 11th.
May 10th, 11th, and 6th. You're going to come closer and hold the challah. All right, here we go. I'm going to have you all help me.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom, Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach.
If you